minutes. Then he will call you. And then, just in case, a lot of these people are having issues with the slide. All right, so we're about to start this third session. So I'd like to call our moderator for tonight, Dr. Fernando Macedo from Brazil. Please welcome Dr. Fernando Macedo with a big round of applause. So we're gonna have third and fourth sessions without any break. So please be patient. If there's coffee outside, if you wanna drink, just be quiet. And then welcome to Dr. Fernando Macedo.
Okay, hello. They told me to introduce myself. So I am a Brazilian dermatologist, and I have been working with lasers and aesthetic medicine for 25 years. I had a fellow in Hospital Saint Louis in Paris in 1998. Some people were being born at that time. And I love what I do. And Exosomes is something that really caught me when I saw in the first Congress in Europe and in the United States. It was something that would, make my work maybe better, and for my patients also. I live in São Paulo. I'm launching my third clinic there. I have 30 dermatologist assistants, not just dermatologists, surgeries and gynecologists working with me. And I think, since you probably know that Brazil is the second society, second market in the world, we're very excited about bringing Exosomes to Brazil, to a great dermatologic surgery society and a great market also. So I learned a lot here now, and I've been learning from Exosomes. I know some of the speakers already. So it's an honor to be here with you and to share my learnings afterwards with my colleagues in Brazil. Also, there are some other dermatologists from Brazil that I would like to thank them to come also to Korea. So, having said that, we're gonna introduce our first lecturer. Is Mr. Tom Siri. He's the CEO of Real Self, and he's gonna talk about Real Self in medical aesthetic industry. Should be a very interesting talk.
Thank you. Oh, there we go. Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. And I'm very accustomed to eating. I have 2 children, and when they're eating meals, they barely pay attention to me. So if you continue to clank and use your dishes, fine. I have no problem. I do appreciate being here. I'm not a physician. I've never run a practice, nor should I probably ever be running a practice. I'm an entrepreneur. And what has attracted me to this industry, I know many of the doctors in this room. I've been over 15 years focused on medical aesthetics from a digital perspective, digital marketing, is that so many of the doctors that you heard today, like Dr. Saltz and others speak to, they're entrepreneurs in themselves, and many of you are in this room, putting yourself out there, looking for a problem to solve, using your passion, your grit to really face the struggle that entrepreneurship really embodies, because that's the difference between an idea and entrepreneurship is actual execution. Included within there, of course, are the industry players that, like our hosts are, and Ethan, just incredible entrepreneurs who are willing to push the boundaries and find a product market fit against all odds. So I'm honored to be here, and I'm going to speak today to a bit of the insights that I might be able to impart from my position in the industry, from more of a looking at consumers, looking at past trends, current trends, and see where regenerative aesthetics is headed from a different angle, perhaps. One thing that was poorly vetted about me is that this is a talk I gave in Las Vegas not too far in the past, and you can see I totally knocked out this guy. So if you feel a little sleepy, there's some people here I know are suffering some jet lag. I would not take offense. It's happened to me before, and I work on it powerfully. The platform that I built over 15 years ago was really centered around helping consumers become more confident, more educated about aesthetics. At the time, there was no Facebook really, the iPhone hadn't been invented. It was a very uncharted space and it was very murky. And my wife had said she was getting a facial and they encouraged her to get a laser treatment. And she said, and I was like, oh, I didn't know you could do a laser on your face to look prettier. That's very odd, to burn your face, look prettier. But she said, yeah, and everything all they gave me was this brochure. And I don't really believe anything in it. And at the time I was working for Expedia, we had bought TripAdvisor and we were just talking about this. And TripAdvisor had really revolutionized this idea that you're not just taking what marketers say, what the hotel says about themselves, you're seeing what real humans are saying. So I applied that same thinking to medical aesthetics, and we've built a platform that's evolving to international. We have Middle Eastern presence. We're across 15 countries and many languages. And I'm very proud of our team and the spirit they have. But we're also going through a revolution, or sort of, I guess, disrupting ourselves before someone potentially will disrupt us, which is we're using AI now to figure out how we take our over 4 million Q&As that many doctors in this room have participated in, and I appreciate that, and train language models so they can be more effective at answering consumer questions. And it's a very challenging space, ChatGPT, ChatGPT-4. In medical, it's actually, and I'll just digress a moment, AI is complex in that what we've seen is the more you interact with an agent, when you're chatting, the more it hallucinates, the more information it makes up. So it's a very, if you think about your own patients, for you who are providers, doctors, they have more than one question, they have immense numbers. So that's a space that we're tackling. It's gritty, it's difficult, but it needs to happen because that's something we'll talk about, the trends. One of the things that Ethan challenged me with is regenerative aesthetics a thing? What do we see? At the center of anti-aging medicine with aesthetics, what can we glean from my perspective? So it's an exciting space because I do think there's some very favorable trends. I'm not really here to make predictions. Really, I think most of us are trying to figure out, and this is using ChatGPT's definitions, we really are trying to seek out what trends are there. And as they say in many things, including investment, the trend is your friend. You want the trend behind you, or you want to attach yourself to moments where things are changing favorably. And the trend analysis involves insights that come from very unique places. For instance, Nike will put people in Seoul, Korea, just to look at the fashions and to see what people are wearing, to learn how to inform designers. You see that across the board in industries. There's this insight gathering that's really sifting through and trying to build awareness and direction. Not lost in this room, and it's kind of almost redundant to say, medical aesthetics is a lifestyle trend. And I think in what I've been just blown away with in Korea is just how it's so much further ahead of the US. It's so advanced. This is like, of course it's been a trend. It's been a trend for a long time. But really we saw with COVID in the United States, this acceleration where consumers are searching and finding, and I use Botox as sort of almost a leading indicator of how common it is for consumers to now consider that as part of their lifestyle. It's not just a thing for the rich. It's not just a thing that people kind of hide. It's become a very much normalized and comfortable where people share on social media and so forth. One of the things that's kind of unusual about my perspective on this, I think, is that it's not just the trend of medical aesthetics, but what's happening in technology. And this is a chart from Thomas Friedman's excellent book, Thank You for Being Late. And this is basically showing on the, our ability to adapt, our ability to process information is relatively stable. We evolve, but it's a slow process. But with quantum computing, and we talked about AI a moment ago, you see it's exponential. So at this point, we have, for instance, AI technology that enables the software test for becoming an Amazon engineer was aced by ChatGPT. Aced, 100% right, all the answers. Now there's some flaws and so forth, but the point is what science, what technology is going to enable is a tremendous, there's going to be some challenges. There's going to be some very difficult societal challenges we are just on the cusp of. That's including disruption of entire fields where jobs will be lost and replaced by bots and other technology driven solutions. But what it does do, it should free a lot of us from the toil, from the difficulties that many of us have with everyday things like booking a restaurant. Very simple things to more complex, like finding compounds, your next compound in drug discovery. What we see in US consumers, and I don't think this is different for many places in the world, is it particularly a pronounced demand, not just desire, but demand for greater convenience. They're willing to sacrifice other things as long as things become more convenient. In America, I typically do a little thing where I ask the audience how long, we use Uber quite a bit for cabs. I'm like, how long are you willing to wait? And the typical answer is about 4 minutes. And I always say that's insane, but that's your patient, that's your customer, that is the generation, that's how we see things now. They deliver to us, they should happen instantly. And these are trends that do play out in medical aesthetics and to regenerative aesthetics as well. I'll share that in a moment. What we see from our perspective, when I started my business, things were a little simpler. You could map out the journey, the consumer, customer, patient journey, where, oh, here's what they do. And it's sort of somewhat linear. It wasn't that hard to be a good marketer in the early days of the internet, as well as in aesthetics, if you wanted to sort of become more successful through digital marketing. But what we've seen is, and this isn't just medical aesthetics, it's hyper complex. If you go to a marketing conference, they just spend the entire time talking about how this is impossible to figure out, how consumers make these decisions. And when you ask your patients, where did you hear about us? And it just could be like 40 different things. How did you hear about Exosomes? I don't know. It just came up in a conversation. I saw it on digital. I said, it's hyper fragmented, which just means it's more and more challenging for us to actually know which node we spend time on. Where do we make it? Where is the most influential places? Where can we have impact and how do we affect it? But this is how we all operate, not just your patients, not just industry. Where we see it playing out in our data is that consumers have, particularly these new wave of mainstream consumers. And again, you're aware of this, but I think the rest of the world is sort of slower to catch up, is that they are extraordinarily focused on how do I get results conveniently delivered so I can go in no downtime. This whole Zoom boom where you can hide behind a camera is over now. And so what's next is convenience, going back to convenience, simplicity, results. Actually, we see in our own data, the second largest topic on our platform last month was Morpheus 8. And I have no relationship with the company, but it's just this indicator of just how big that interest is. And it's not about Morpheus 8. It's about what they think it delivers, the benefit that consumers are seeking. Our own editorial staff has been looking closer at Exosomes, and they share a lot of what you've heard today from their editorials, sort of sifting through, talking to beauty industry people, and have said there is something here because Exosomes play that role and could be a very important part to delivering what that consumer now demands. Simplicity, back to work, results, simple, making, and gosh, I'm gonna have to go to, in Barcelona and get my hair work done because I like the results I saw. Dr. Gold, I'll talk to you later about that. But again, we see it as something that's interesting and what could be next in the industry, which is something that's really exciting, particularly for this room. But this is my last slide. Sorry, I've got 30 seconds. But what stands in the way? And this is more of me putting it on you, saying education. You can't do enough educating. the lectures you heard today and we'll hear this evening, the insights that you have. Consumers don't just want to hear, at least from what I've seen, now it could be different in Korea, they don't just want to hear what that brochure says. They want to read the papers. They want science. They want to learn. But look at the gaps you see in what US and UK consumers have about technologies that you've all taken probably for granted that, of course, everybody's heard of IPO. IPO's been around forever. So there's a tremendous opportunity to play a role in this and helping the consumer get educated, help them understand what these new technologies do for them and deliver what they ultimately want, which is that convenience factor and knowledge that they're making wise decisions and they're really going to achieve their confident self. So with that, I'll say thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. And if you want to reach out to me, please do.
Thank you very much, Tom, for your insights. And now I have the pleasure to invite Dr. Sailin. She's one of the researchers that work together with ExoCobio from the beginning. She's also called the mother of the exosomes, I think. And it's a great pleasure. I have seen her lectures before to have her here, and she's gonna talk about anti-aging effects of mesenchymal cells exosomes from Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank ExoCobio and CEO Cho for this kind invitation to be here. Every time I come here, I see great progress in ExoCobio. It's very impressive. So I'd like to start and share with you another aspect of MSC exosomes is anti-aging effect. Now, so I think most of you are familiar with MSC. It's been used to treat many diseases many years ago. And for a long time, it was thought that they were home to injured tissue and graft and differentiate to form new tissues. However, in 2005, the scientific community start to realize it doesn't work that way, and they think it works through the secretion. And then, by 2009, 2010, the field discovered extracellular vesicles, first by Kamusi, who reported microvesicles, and a few months later, my group reported that the exosomes, the smaller vesicles, are also active. Now, I'd like to share with you how we moved from cells to EVs. So, initially it was Kamusi group reported that it was the 80 nanometer to 1 micron microvesicles. Then we say that the 100 to 200 nanometer exosome also works. And by 2017, the Kamusi group observed that the 160 nanometer, but not the 200 nanometer vesicles are therapeutic. So right now, the general consensus is that the therapeutic MSC EVs are between 50 to 200 nanometer. So I'd like to share with you how I got into the field. So we were playing with human ES cells, and we got MSC, and we found that this MSC could produce conditioned media that is therapeutically active, and it could reduce the influx size of animal models by about 50%. But the conditioned media of HEK cells do not. Furthermore, we found that the active agent in this conditioned media reside in the less than 200 nanometer range, that is less than 1,000 kilodalton. And then we subsequently isolated exosomes, which could do the same thing as MSC itself. And we also, in about 2011, not that we observe, most of us are aware that MSC are very heterogeneous, they have a finite lifespan, and that introduced a lot of variability in the manufacturing process. So we decided then to clone the cells, immortalize it, clone it, so that we have identical cells for infinite production of MSC exosomes. And with this immortalization, of course, there were concerns that it could be tumorigenic or produce exosomes that are tumor promoting, and we've shown that it does not. And then Using these exosomes, we found that it could be efficacious in many diseases. We and various collaborative groups around the world show that it's effective in more than 10 different diseases. And last year, we carried out a phase 1 clinical trial on these exosomes for topical application to treat psoriasis. Now, from 2010, when Kamusi and I published the first paper on MSC EVs, there's been an exponential increase in publication on stem cell EVs. Last year, there was a paper that surveyed the stem cell EV research around the world. As you can see, the powerhouse are US and China. They dominate the R&D in every parameters you can think of, except one. That is the average citation per paper. In this case, Singapore was number 1. We have more citation. We have twice as many citations as the US and 3 times that of China. And I like to think that my postdoc and I had something to do with that. So today I would like to talk about the aging-associated senescence that these MSC exosomes could have. So it has a lot of implication in anti-aging. Now this work was done and published 2 years ago. It was done mainly by Paul Robbins, who led this study. So he uses the mouse model of progeria. For those who are not familiar, progeria is a disease of premature aging. So most kids die in their teens. Now, so one of the first experiments that Paul did was to inject MSC into these progeria mice. And then what he observed was that at 60 days, 90% of the mice were dead, untreated mice were dead. But 90% of those that were given the young MSC were still alive. Then he injected these animals with MSC EVs. And what he observed is that by 60 days, 100% of the untreated mice were dead. 60% of those treated animals were still alive. So as you know, in aging, right, most of the time, it's now thought that the aging process is caused by the accumulation of senescent cells. And this accumulation causes a lot of age-related disease. So a lot of the anti-senescence therapy or anti-aging therapy target these senescent cells. So a lot of drugs are being developed to remove the senescent cells called senolytics, or to change the phenotype of the senescent cells called xenomorphics. So the question that Paul asked was, does these EVs change the senescent cells? So he put the EVs on these cells, and he looks at one of the characteristics of senescent cells. So senescent cells has many characteristics. The easiest one to measure is the beta-gal activity. So he looks at beta-gal activity, and he shows that the EVs can reduce the number of senescent cells that is senolytic. However, then he ran into a bit of a technical problem. So because they couldn't produce enough MSC exosome for their study, so he decided to collaborate with me to use the exosome from our immortalized cell. So when he take these MSC exosomes, he used it to treat his mice. And then he looked for aging symptoms. Can he reduce the aging symptoms in these mice? And what he observed is that after treatment with this MSC, he can see a significant reduction in aging symptoms in these mice. Then, so he can show that these immortalized MSC exosomes reduce aging symptoms in the progeria mice. The next question is, what aspect of the senescent cells is he reducing? So he took the cells, the exosomes, he put them on senescent fibroblasts. And he looks at some of the characteristics of senescent cells and asks which can it reduce those senescence markers? The first one he looked was beta-gal activity. So he saw that the beta-gal activity was reduced. Then he looked at the senescence-associated secretory phenotypes. And these are the IL-1 beta and the IL-6. And he also observed that both cytokines were reduced. Then he looked at the cell cycle arrest. So senescent cells are arrested in the cell cycle, and these are the markers for this is P16 and P21. And he also showed that the exosomes can reduce this senescent marker. So the next question was, he wants to know, so he has been working on these progeria mice. These are genetically defective mice. So he wants to know, can he see the same effect in naturally aged mice? So he take 2-year-old wild type mice, which is very old, and then he inject them with the EVs. And after he inject them on day 0 and day 7 and on day 10, he sacrificed them. He removed their liver, the kidney, liver, lung, and brain, and he looks for senescence marker. So, so these are the senescence markers. So the first one he looked at was a cell cycle arrest. So you can see that in the kidney, liver, the P16 was reduced, but not in the lung and the brain. And in the lung and brain, the P21 was reduced. Essentially, one of the cell cycle marker was reduced in at least one of the markers is reduced in all 4 tissues, which means that the cell cycle arrest was not cell cycle arrest. Now, the next one he looked at was the senescence-associated secretory phenotype. And what he observed was that in all the tissues, except for the lung, the IL-6 and the IL-1 beta and IL-6 was significantly reduced. The IL-6 in the lung was not. And this is a lot more important because it's generally thought that the this secretory phenotype is the driver of the disease phenotype. So decreasing it will reduce the disease phenotype. So I hope this is something informative. I'll conclude now. So basically, I hope that I can convince you that the immortalized MSC exosomes could reduce cellular senescence both in vitro and in vivo. And therefore, it could potentially alleviate senescence-associated phenotype in human, and this is the target of most of the anti-aging strategy at this moment. So with this, I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Lin, for a very interesting talk. And now our next speaker is Dr. Richard Jim from the US. He has been helping develop exosomes in the States and was one of the first person also who I talk about exosomes. I thank you for your time. And he's gonna talk about utilizing the power of exosomes to treat alopecia.
All right, well, thank you very much. And thank you, Byung Cho and Ethan Min, for giving me this opportunity to speak in front of you. I just want to talk a little bit today about how I've used exosomes in my practice in treating alopecia, some very practical approaches, also elucidate a little bit about PRP and how well that's worked, but also show you a comparison of exosomes from platelets and exosomes from adipose-derived mesenchymal stem cells, and showing you some fundamental differences. So hair loss, this is just general statistics. Bottom line is both men and women were affected, right? When we get older, hair thins, we lose hair, and hair is a big part of who we are. In terms of different causes of hair loss, I like to break it into 4 different categories. It's hormonal, nutrient deficiencies, environmental, autoimmunity, and a lot of it's inflammatory related. In terms of current treatments that we use for hair loss and what I use in my practice, they include supplements, drugs such as finasteride or dutasteride, oxides such as minoxidil or Rogaine, as is commonly known in the States. I also use a lot of PRP, and some of you, I'm sure, use stem cells and exosomes. And I'm sure some of you in the crowd also do hair transplantation. So in terms of hair loss, nutrient deficiencies, iron, biotin, B12, we know that there's a lot of growth factors that affect hair, right? And for many, many years, PRP has been a great source of growth factors, right? At least that's what people think, right? People think, oh, you take something from your blood, you spin it down, and you have all these goodies in there. Granted, you have certain growth factors such as PDGF, TGF-beta, FGF, VEGF, EGF, and so on, but those levels are very, very, very low, and I don't think many people realize that. In addition, you have a lot of variability from person to person. So one male to one female, and one session to the next session, your platelets are going to react differently. All these levels will be affected differently. But with that said, PRP has worked really well, and I'm sure many of you use it in your practice, both on the skin and on the hair. So there's no denying that. But so let's move on to environmental factors, oxidant stress and inflammation. That's a big part of, I think, kind of an underappreciated, just an area where it's not really looked at too much, right? We know that oxidant stress, both on our face and our hair, can adversely affect hair follicles, right? The role of reactive oxygen species in hair loss leads to increased free radicals, which is associated with DNA damage, damage to RNA proteins, basically resulting in premature aging and cell death. So reactive oxygen species has a central role, and I've incorporated antioxidants into my treatments to help with that, and I'll show you some data. But what the antioxidants really do, and this is what I postulated, is it increases nitric oxide bioavailability, right? In particular, antioxidants helps maintain NO bioavailability, decreasing oxidative stress within physiological and pathophysiological processes, ultimately leading to more robust hair. This here is just some primary data. I think the most important data, most relevant, is the graphs on the left. It's cell proliferation data of dermal papillae cells, where we treated them with different conditions. We had just standard growth media, media plus growth factors, namely EGF and FGF, and then thirdly, media plus growth factors was EGF and FGF, as well as antioxidants, which include glutathione and L-arginine. We're able to see at normoxia, you kind of see a nice dose response in terms of increase in cell proliferation. But when you subject these DP cells to hypoxia, which is at the bottom left, you see a markedly increase or a markedly difference in the cells that are treated both with the growth factors as well as the antioxidants. Moving on to other areas such as inflammation, right? So what I really want to transition and change gears to is, PRP has worked really well. With exosomes coming onto the scene, people are using it for everything. People are using it for skin, people are using it for hair, et cetera, et cetera. But I really want to know, what are the fundamental differences that are causing these results that we're seeing? In terms of hair growth, how exosomes work, right? We know they have certain growth factors, IGF, KGF, HGF, et cetera, and they have several microRNA that play important roles in hair growth. Different sources of exosomes, but in particular, what we're going to talk about today are the adipose-derived mesenchymal stem cells. So this is from my lab, which is a third-party, independently run, aside from ExcoBio. I just wanted to see the results for myself. Looking at these three growth factors, VEGF, HGF, and FGF2, this is just relative absorbance. In blue are adipose-derived exosomes from adipose-derived mesenchymal stem cells, and in orange are platelets, right? You saw that third or fourth slide where I showed the growth factors that are involved in that exosomes from PRP, right? There was PDGF, VEGF, FGF, but you see here when we're looking at, we're trying to quantitate levels of that, right? We can't even pick anything up in terms of relative absorbance when we're using or we're running our ELISAs. So we can see here in terms of these three growth factors in particular, VEGF, HGF, and FGF2, you have higher levels of growth factors compared to exosomes that are derived from platelets. Now, we talked a lot about in previous talks about the inflammatory response and the anti-inflammatory properties of exosomes, right? So here, what I wanted to do is I wanted to look at a whole slew of inflammatory markers, and looking again at exosomes from adipose-derived mesenchymal stem cells in blue, and then looking at exosomes from platelets. I think with the exception of IL-6, you see higher levels of inflammatory markers, 2, 5, 15, TNF-alpha, TNF-beta, in exosomes derived from platelets as compared to exosomes derived from adipose-derived mesenchymal stem cells. So in a nutshell, you could say, and you can conclude that exosomes from adipose-derived mesenchymal stem cells, they have a lot more growth factors, and they have intrinsic anti-inflammatory properties. So here we come to this, right? We come to the Benev exosome regenerative complex, right? And I started incorporating this into my procedures in addition to a lot of other modalities that I already talked about. And this really helped boost and push my results further, right? And the title of my talk was just alopecia. It was a generalization, right? But I treat patients with alopecia areata, alopecia totalis, androgenetic alopecia, and I use the same kind of formula and combination, and adding exosomes have really pushed my patient satisfaction level and results to another level. So these exosomes in particular, they're stem cell derived, have potent growth factors, peptides, enzymes, amino acids. In addition to their intrinsic anti-inflammatory properties, there are antioxidants added along in the exosome regenerative complex. So I'm just going to go over 3 quick cases. This is a patient with alopecia areata, and again, using just a multimodal approach to hair loss. This was a 32-year-old patient who went to a dermatologist, went through the intrafollicular steroid injections for many, many months, no results. It actually got worse before it got better. I incorporated all of these modalities together, and in about 5 months, seen pretty much total reversal of this condition. Another case is alopecia totalis. So this was a young female in her early 40s, had very, very beautiful hair, and just came to me and looked like she just lost everything, right? So again, initiating all these different multimodal approaches in addition and including exosomes, basically over the course of 9 months, be able to totally reverse her condition. This here is an African-American female with androgenetic alopecia, basically here on the crown, and basically, again, using the same approach, in incorporation of exosomes in the course of a few months, being able to really improve her outcome. Same patient in terms of the kind of the frontal part of her hair, which is very difficult to treat in patients in general. Again, and this is just microneedling the exosome regenerative complex. So closing remarks, hair loss is multifactorial, right? Exosomes are great, right? We know that exosomes have a lot of growth factors, have a lot of anti-inflammatory properties, but you have to approach it from many, many different kind of prongs, right, in terms of treatments, right? We know antioxidants increase nitric oxide levels, which increase oxidative stress on the hair. Combination of growth factors and preservation of NO bioavailability leads to better hair growth in patients. But I think the icing on the cake for me is that exosomes provide the necessary growth factors, and their intrinsic anti-inflammatory properties have really, really pushed my results to a whole nother level and my patient satisfaction to a whole nother level. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you, Jim, for your talk. And now we're going to have about Dr. Todd Schlesinger from the US. He's going to talk about extracellular vesicles in aesthetics. Is it fact or fiction?
Fact or fiction, thank you very much. And thank you for hosting us and for everybody for being here. So I'm Dr. Schlesinger, Todd Schlesinger. I'm a dermatologist in USA. And these are some of the devices I have in my practice. I'm going to take you through a little bit of a rapid fire through some of the science of exosomes, sort of facts or fiction. We'll talk about exosomes today, among extracellular vesicles, you can see the size. These are the ones we'll talk about today. You can see the size of these and how they get taken up into cells. So the green are exosomes that are very near a nucleus and the cytoplasm of a cell. So they are taken up an exosome into cells. You can see what size they are in the upper left-hand corner, focusing around 100 nanometers. So they diffuse, exosomes diffuse through tissues. They find their target, they have a function, and they're able to affect changes in the skin. When you think about stem cells and exosomes, you think about very differently that exosomes go through tissue, they can be stored, they can be transported easily, as ExcoBio has figured out how to do for us, versus stem cells, which are living cells, and they're a little bit harder to use and have limited therapeutic potential. Tons of research going on. You can see it's exponentially increasing around the world. There's hundreds of thousands of mRNAs, hundreds of thousands of lipids, and we focused on what's in dermatology. So how do exosomes work in dermatology? These are some of the growth factors and things that we think about in our field. And when we think about the science of exosomes and how they're going to affect us, we're looking for helping blood vessels. We're looking for scar improvement. So cells uptake exosomes, as you saw. These are some of the ways in which some of the science behind how that's done. Multiple different mechanisms of action are there. And when you think about making medications and drugs, especially neurological drugs, they don't perform as well in the clinical as they do in the lab. And reason why is they may not get to their target. So exosomes can help medications get where they need to be in our body, as opposed to crossing the blood-brain barrier. We already know many of the sources that exosomes come from, and this is exosome characterization, so how you actually determine what is in an exosome, what's there, or how you determine if your exosomes are actually what size they are. So these are all the different techniques that you can use. So these are some of the exosomes that are available in the United States. You can see the separation technique and the concentration here of the different products. Adipose seems to be one of the biggest ones that we're using, but human-derived is not always available around the world. How they're made and how they're isolated. This is important. And looking at these companies and looking at how things are done, ultracentrifugation has always been the gold standard, but tangential flow filtration has really risen to the top, and then immune affinity might be the next step. It's not quite ready for the prime time yet, but it's the next step. And this is a new technique called double tangential flow filtration, using a membrane with a serpentine interior to help try to increase the efficiency and purity of production of exosomes. This is called immunoaffinity, another immunoaffinity. This is another way of using CD63. This is a heat process, so you capture exosomes, you heat and release. So this can help further improve the viability and actually the purity of the exosome you derive. So we already talked about the industry. So these are some of the claims. So these are all the things we think about in dermatology, in beyond dermatology, in medicine in a general sense. But how much of it is actually true? So I'll go through some of these things pretty quickly. So in dermatology, we're really interested in all the things we can do, especially when it comes to orphan diseases. We have a lot of severe diseases, if you've already seen some excellent outcomes from those. And this is atopic dermatitis. So look at some of the science. This is all just background science. So inflammatory cytokines reduced, reduce epidermal thickening. So how can that be done? Reduced, increased hydration. That's something we want to do for atopic dermatitis as well. And we also want to increase ceramide synthesis or protein synthesis in the body, in the skin. So here's a product. I'm just going to go through different products. This is not, it's just to show different things. This is a product that shows it can do this. It can hydrate and fortify skin, and that would be through these two mechanisms of action. Anti-inflammatory, this is also something we really want to look at. This is the mouse model, it's a psoriasis model. So they've taken imiquimod, they've created a mouse model increasing IL-17, which as we know is a problem for psoriasis, one of the cytokines, and they use exosomes to try to reduce that in this model. So looking at the science, we may be able to use psoriasis, exosomes for psoriasis in the future. What about stretch marks? This is another big, scars, healing scars. Here's a mouse model. This is a control. These are non-diabetic exosomes you can see produce a healing effect, and diabetic exosomes which do not. And if you actually knock out a gene in these cells that produces apoptosis, if you knock out that one, you get improved wound healing. So, modulating tissue and improving that can actually help you in even diabetic patients. Here's a study for scar repair and prevention. So you can see reduction in scar volume, pore volume, and roughness. This is for carbon dioxide, for acne scars. This is injection of exosomes, and we don't inject exosomes, but this is just in a mouse model with a burn scar showing that subcutaneous exosomes may help in the future. Now there's no injection of exosomes now approved, but in the future that may be something we could do when they actually become a drug in the future. So angiogenesis, here's another thing. We want to make our flaps do better. We want flaps to improve. Here's a model using human umbilical vascular endothelial cells stimulated, stressed by hydrogen peroxide. So this is how you get exosomes out of these. And what does that do? That can help our flaps do better by improving survival, by promoting angiogenesis. Hair loss, you've already heard a lot about hair loss. Same effects as stem cells, improving hair counts. And you can see before and after there. All just different published data from around. Here's another product. What does this one claim to do? This one claims to reduce pigmentation. So here's keratinocyte-derived exosomes that can decrease melanin and decrease tyrosine production. So this is just a slide showing you a marker, what they look like when they're taken up by the cells in our skin. Anti-aging, this is the biggest one that we think about. Of course, you've seen this slide before, something that Exobiome have been very focused on, and others, and this is that study with using fractional carbon dioxide laser. So improving the outcome of our procedures is what we want to do. This one shows a percentage of scar reduction in a CO2 laser with and without using exosomes. In skin patients, dupilumab, redness, it's one of the side effects we see from biologics. Facial redness improved with exosomes as well. So just some of the different things that are out there. Here's a before and after. This is PRP on one side and then exosome on the other side, showing the difference in erythema. So that's also helpful. It plays well into our other inflammatory skin diseases that we see. Of course, the regulatory landscape, as you know, the holy grail, everyone wants to be in the green, but in reality, we probably are in the red, getting to the point where these will eventually become actual drugs that can be actually used under approval by FDAs around the world. So these are some of the challenges in exosomes. How do we make them scalable? How do we make them work well? And how do we make them pure? And how do we get them out to everyone, regulatory-wise? This is one of the things, safety. So where the exosomes go, how are they cleared in our body? Our body clears them out through different things. The lungs, the liver, and the kidneys are one of the three major places where they're cleared. So we have to be careful about applying exosomes to make sure that they're safe, especially if they're going to be used more in a drug-like manner in the future. So how do you do that? This is just some other science. You can mix them with polymers to slow down absorption. You can incorporate them after gelation in a polymer, or you could do both. You can do both together. So these are just different things that can be done that when it's in the future, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10 years, when exosomes become more of like a drug, more used for targeted delivery for skin disease or other diseases, that we can actually see that work in a more healthy manner. So just a few cases from my practice. Acne scarring, we're getting great results using sulfamex in combination with their exosomes as well. So that's kind of nice to see. Just some skin smoothing. This is showing that you've got some skin quality improvement here. And then this is one of my prize cases. I really like this one. This is just sulfamex, just exosomes, no fillers, no modulators, nothing else. Just shows you the pure outcome of this tightening that we're getting. You can see in the lower face, 2 treatments. We see the improvement. We know it's working for our patients. You can see skin quality improvement, and you can see that jawline improving. That's really the holy grail that a lot of patients really want to see. That compared to a carbon dioxide laser case, again, using exosomes after. This is just straight carbon dioxide, looked at it about 8 to 12 weeks later. And you can see, actually, I wouldn't say she's got improvement in the lower face, but I like the tightening from the sulfamex and exosomes combination better. I like the skin quality that she got from this. So it's comparable, it's helpful, it's been a great thing for our practice. So thank you very much and appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Todd. And now we're going to have Dr. Suparu from Thailand, which I just know here in our dinner. And he's going to talk about a multiverse of applications in dermatology. Welcome, Dr. Suparu.
Good evening, everyone. It's really my honor to be here. The dermatologist from Bangkok, Thailand. I will try to focus on the clinical application and clinical study of the multiverse application of the exosome. First, about acne scar, you can see that this is on my forearm. I try to use the exosome and also the control gel. We can see that exosome help reduction the downtime very fast. We can observe that since the 3 hours, So how that's supported by the first randomized clinical trial of the exosome and fractional carbon dioxide laser in the treatment of schizophrenia scar that show that better efficacy and shorten post-treatment downtimes after fractional carbon dioxide laser. And how about the other treatment of acne scar, fractional picosecond laser, fractional microneedle RF? So this case, day 1 and day 7 after fractional picosecond laser with the high fluent. This is the control with moisturizer, with ceramide, and the others was treated with exosome. You can see the significant improvement difference. So from day 1, the patient can see the significant difference. This is without exosome, and this session with exosome. You can see the patient downtime short from 7 into 1 or 2 days. This is day 1, day 3, day 1, day 3 with exosome. You can see the shorter the downtime. Also, I performed the split lesion. This side, I used the fractional picosecond laser first, and you apply the control moisturizer. And this side, I use the exosome. You also can see the shorter downtimes. And how about the efficacy? This is just 1 or 2 cases of mine. So long-term study are required, but the patient feel that significantly decrease the downtime and also show the better efficacy. But we need a larger study. And how about we not only for the skin booster, we have the polynucleotide intradermal injection. So split phase to see that this receive picosecond laser with exosome topical application. The other side was treated with picosecond laser and polynucleotide intradermal injection. The downtimes almost just not significantly different, but the patient they feel that he had previously treated with the picosecond laser before, but this time he feels that the downtime are significantly reducing. However, for the topical exosome application, he feels no pain from the injection like the polynucleotide size. This is the day 1, day 3 on the topical exosome, and the other side with the polynucleotide intradermal injection. I think the downtime almost the same. And the others treatment with the fractional microneedle RF, I use quite high frequency. For natural scar treatment, I perform the same. This time, a topical exosome application, and the other sides will fractional microneedle RF, and then topical intradermal polynucleotide injection. They saw that the shorter downtimes also. Fractional microneedle RF less have the downtime than fractional picosecond laser, but this also shorter downtimes. So you can see that topical exosome, shorter downtimes like the polynucleotide injection, and also no pain from the injection like the polynucleotide. And when the patient, and I also absorb that the more of the exosome application times, the more skin quality improvement. You can see this is no exosome, this one first session, second and third session. So this is the same power. So the patient downtime significantly decreasing, and also the patient's skin quality show significant improvement. This is the daytime post picosecond laser. On the third session of exosome in combination with post picosecond laser, skin almost improve like the no downtime at all. So how about the other type of scar, hypertrophic scar and keloid? I added the exosome into the standard treatment, topical picosecond laser, fractional laser, topical steroid, and add the exosome. They are show more benefit add on to the traditional treatment, especially the itching. The patient feel that significantly itching. This is the hypertrophic burn scar. Previously treated with standard treatment with the laser. When add one treatment with exosome, patient feel significantly decreasing in the itching, and also the redness and size of the scar much reducing. And this is the 2 session of the laser, and in combination with topical exosome and topical steroid with no injection, you can see the improvement. So that could explain, but by the molecular study, we can show exosome have the effect on first stage on the wound healing and also the scar formation. So I think the early application of exosome could help the patient a lot. How about the others? Atrophic scar. This is the pock scar. This is only 3 sessions with the subcision, laser, and also exosome. The patient feel very impressed with the result. And this is a surgical scar revision. So the laser and in combination with the exosome and subcision, almost they say that when they apply only minor makeup, they cannot see. The stretch mark also only 1 session with laser and exosome. This is 2 sessions. So from my practice, the thing that I found interesting is about exosome and hair loss. It's quite impressive. In the case with currently on the treatment with oral medication, fractional laser, or PRP, when I got the exosome and apply first, second, and third session, the patient feel improved in the hair thickness and hair density, even the patient with previously medical treatment. So the other case with the no previous treatment, I combine with the micro needling and topical exosome. So this is only 2 sessions. And the interesting thing, as all the speaker mentioned, is about the effect on the gray hair. The patient feel that they have to go to have the hair coloring. If every one month, something like that, this is 2 months already. So I think they need more study. The other techniques that I use, the fractional picosecond laser in combination with the exosome. The benefit of the fractional picosecond laser, there is almost no pain, no downtime, like fractional CO2 or microneedling. This frontal area also show the improvement. This is for 3 sessions, no other medication. So the other thing is, even for the case with previous hair transplantation and autologous hair tissue micrografting and on oral medication, fractional laser, PRP, or low-level therapy, when you add exosome treatment as the topical after you use the laser, they still have the improvement. So I think it's quite interesting. They're supported by 2 clinical trials. This is use the microneedling with exosome for 12 consecutive weeks, so increase the thickness and density. This is I'm looking for the result, but this is just the abstract. So that microneedling with ASCE exosome show the improvement. How about the pigmentation disorder? So I have to say that it's quite difficult for me. We need many treatments, sun protection, something like that, laser, but some cases show the improvement. But for me, as we in Thailand, the strong sun, something like that, so the result maybe equivalent. But there are studies that show that in the treatment of melasma, the stem cell-derived exosome in combination with non-ablative fractional laser, microneedling, or plasma device can also achieve the good result. And the other study also combination with the human adipocyte-derived stem cell exosome in combination with the microneedling can help improving the facial skin aging. This is a study. I feel that exosome is not for the aesthetic only. It's for the skin disease also. In this case, severe recalcitrant seborrheic dermatitis. He previously needs some of short course of oral steroid, pimacrolimus or topical steroid, recurrent. And at this time, I use the ASE exosome with the electroporation, not needle. The symptom of itching and redness of the patient significantly decreased during the first 2 or 3 days. And later, I give him the maintenance treatment with the Exobalm, and this is the 3-month follow-up. He don't have any symptom, and skin quality significantly improved. The other difficult to treat skin diseases is the lichen amyloidosis, refractory case. They previously on high potency steroid, tretinoin peeling, something like that. When I add topical exosome application for 7 days, the symptoms significantly improved, and the itching decreased from the score 9 to 10 to 2 to 3 itching symptoms. So this is the role. So I will try to summarize that this is the study that support my information. The exosome, they improve the efficacy and shorten the post-treatment downtime, fractional CO2, maybe pico, fractional mechanical needle wire, thermomechanical abrasion, and improve the downtime. There is maybe the topical application, improve the downtime comparable to polynucleotide intranormal injection. For the hypertrophic scar, atrophic, and stria, they improve. They can use in combination with the laser like this, or and also standard medication such as topical triamcinolone acetonide 5-FU, or used as monotherapy. The other interesting is about the AGA. They have the efficacy. Even in the previous case with hair transplant, autologous hair tissue micrografting, PRP, fractional laser, they may, I think they have the efficacy on the gray hair reversion. Can use as the mono or combination with the laser and treatment. There are many techniques that are published in the journal. Also benefit on the skin aging, melasma, and for the recalcitrant, difficult to treat seborrheic dermatitis. And as for my interest, I think lichen sclerosis may have the role. So, final slide, I would like to conclude that multiple efficacy of the exosome application, both in aesthetic and medical dermatology. However, we need more study. As I revealed, this is only 4 clinical study of the exosome currently. We need more basic and also clinical study to verify the efficacy and also the safety of the exosome for the clinical application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suparu, for your experience. And now we're going to call our last speaker in this session, Dr. Lidia Madziuska. She's from Poland, and she's going to show her experience about treating scar treatments, skin atrophy treatments. After the session, we're not going to have questions, right, Diego? Okay, so we go after. You keep your questions for the next sessions. We will do it all together in the end of the section 4. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure and a great honor to be here. Before I will talk about the case that was my case that was awarded, I would like to say a few words about plant-derived exosomes or extracellular vesicles as the product I use in my practice. This is ASC Plus, Exosomes product, which is based on rose stem cells exosomes. So as you probably noticed in the recent years, the number of publications on plant-derived extracellular vesicles is constantly growing, but it's still hundreds compared to thousands that we have on animal-derived exosomes. So when you go to the clinical trials, registered clinical trials, you will see that there are not so many registered trials, the ones that would explore plant-derived exosomes. Researchers usually work using ginger, grape. These are products that have been known in traditional medicines for ages for the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and antibacterial properties. But one of the main challenges in this kind of trials is a good quality product, GMP grade product. So this is a challenge that we are facing. This is an example of such research. The researchers here plan to use grape seed exosomes in curing or treating oral mucositis, which is associated with chemoradiation treatment of head and neck cancer. Another interesting publication, this is on animal model though, but I'm showing this because, results are quite impressive. And this is the trial where the researchers used ginger-derived exosomes or extracellular vesicles, and they were able to abolish severe pneumonia, which developed in the course of SARS-CoV-2 infections. So the result was really very satisfying. Well, actually, ginger has been used in the number of studies, and again on animal models. its efficacy was proven in, for example, chronic or acute colitis or IBD. So the results here are promising too. And then rose. Rose, again, in traditional medicine has been known for ages for its anti-inflammatory effect. It's been widely used in cosmetics, mainly due to its skin brightening and skin tightening effect. And it's been also used in numerous indications, as you can see here. It contains, in cosmetics, what's important, it contains flavonoids, phenolic acids, and other phenolic compounds. So its efficacy in cosmetics has been known for a long time. This is an example of a publication where it was shown that rose petal extract had anti-inflammatory effect on the skin that was exposed to UV radiation via, this effect was achieved via reduction of MAPK signaling pathway. So also very promising result. The main challenge that was also mentioned before by other speakers regarding exosomes is quality of the products, its purity and certain standardization. And as it comes to the plant-derived exosomes, this is even more difficult compared to the animal ones. So this is data that we have from Exoco manufacturer of AC+, and it shows rose stem cells exosomes, so nanotracking analysis showing size of the size distribution of exosomes, and also confirming that the membranous vesicles, and as you can see, the size and shape resembles that we know to ASC exosomes. And again, cellular uptake of rose exosomes in human dermal fibroblasts, we can see that they would promote migration and proliferation of the fibroblasts, thus increasing production of the collagen. Melanin content, well, we know rose for the skin brightening effect, and it was shown here that the rose stem cells exosomes could reduce melanin content in the cell. But this is the most exciting thing about exosomes, isn't it? microRNAs. I think that still a lot of things to be researched, and it's a peak of iceberg, as Dr. Gold said, but as you can see here, regarding our the product that I use, 27 types of microRNAs match with human microRNAs. 6 of them are responsible for migration and proliferation of the cells. So with plant microRNAs, it's difficult because a little more than 400 were described, but still we know that pre-microRNA sequences have not been, are not available or incomplete for most plant species. So a lot of research have to be done to identify them. And the product that you perfectly well know, this is lyophilized stem cell extract with other active compounds and activating solution. Where do I use it? Well, we all agree, all speakers who presented their cases, that this product, application of this product would speed up the recovery process. This is neck, 37-year-old male patient, one side, and fractional ablative razor, one side treated with ASC+, the other one left untreated. The results after 6 days, you can see the difference between the sides. And going to the case that I was going to show, scar treatment and skin atrophy treatment, well, we all remember the healing process, wound healing process. So please turn your attention to this inflammation stage with the release of the cytokines. And then we have proliferation and remodeling and scar formation. So remember, inflammation and remodeling, this is where exosomes would act. And all the publications that I was able to get regarding scar formation and wound healing were based on exosomes from adipose tissue. That's why I'm showing this mechanism which is behind it. So we still have to work and do some more research how the plant ones would exactly work. But what is important here, exosomes would act in the wound stage and in a scarring stage. And in the wound stage, they would upregulate the expression of the genes collagen responsible for the production of collagen 1, collagen 3, CD34, decorins, elastin, keratinocytes. And parallelly, as you can see, that lower levels of alpha smooth muscle actin and TGF-beta1 would prevent or would optimize the level, the differentiation of fibroblasts into myofibroblasts. Whereas in the scarring stage, we have downregulation of the genes responsible for collagen 1, collagen 3, beta smooth muscle actin, protein P38, TIMP. The same alpha smooth muscle actin and TGF-beta 1 are low and prevent differentiation of fibroblasts into myofibroblasts, which prevents from overgrowing of the scar. So to make it short, exosomes would promote wound healing and reduce scarring. And this is the case that I wanted to show you, the awarded ones. This is a patient, 36-year-old female patient. She underwent skin graft. She had a skin graft when she was 6, and it adapted very well, but she was looking for ways to improve the way it looked. It's the middle part of her face. She didn't want to conceal it with makeup all the time, so she was desperately looking for a solution. She had 6 sessions of collagen injections. I don't know what the product was, and apparently it stimulated the site that the scar overgrew. It became hypertrophic. The skin of the graft became thick, and it was clearly visible. So treating of the physician who treated her injected steroids, and which was followed by classical symptoms of steroid injections: skin thinning, skin atrophy, and discoloration, increased visibility of the capillary vessels. When she came to us, we decided to do microneedling and application of ASC+. She received product to apply it at home at least twice daily. And she came back after 7 days for another microneedling session and application of the product. And you can compare the effect after 12 days of using a product. We noticed even skin tone, there was a reduction of the margins of the scar, reduction of visibility of those small blood vessels. Color improved, while the skin was smoother, seemed more hydration. There was not that pulling effect that this is what patient reported. So since she was a very demanding patient and very unhappy and difficult from psychological point of view. So the fact that at the end she was satisfied, well, I was satisfied too. So this was the last slide of my presentation. I would like to thank Exosomes team for inviting me here, for having me here. I would also like to thank our Polish distributor, for our fruitful, I hope, cooperation. Thanks a lot. And I was going to say have a great evening, but a lot of presentation is ahead of us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for all speakers. And now I'm going to invite Dr. Tingling to be here to help us with section 4.
All right. All right, so as Dr. Lim Ding Song gets into the podium, we're going to have the next case, Dr. Suramis Estrada Blanco. She's actually from Spain, but she couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately. So we're going to play the video. This is a very special case because it's one of the first ones with our new product, IRLB, for the female intimate rejuvenation. So let's take a look, and then we will start with the speakers here in the room.
Hello, everybody. First, I would like to thank Exocovallo for the possibilities of sharing my clinical case in this amazing event. Now I'm going to try to share my screen. Yes. Well, my clinical case is about exosomes, of course. Exosomes, new solution in female genitalia regeneration. Lichen sclerosus, formerly called lichen sclerosus atrophic, is a chronic inflammatory disease of the skin characterized by the presence of papule or atrophic white plaques of unknown etiology, which primarily affect postmenopausal women. Prevalence in general population is estimated at 1 of every 300 to 1,000 individuals. There may be a trigeminal lesion, but it more frequently or most appear in the genital area. Our clinical case was 60 years old patient with history of hypothyroidism receiving oral treatment with uterus 50 milligrams daily, one vaginal delivery 35 years ago, and menopause was at 50 years old, started with symptoms of itching, genital burning, and difficulty in intercourse due to dyspareunia 5 years ago. After previous diagnosis of sclerotrophic lichen by dermatologists and treatment with topical corticosteroids and various moisturizers without improvement, come to my consultation for another opinion and looking for another solution. After all these symptoms and good physical examination in the vulvar and vaginal area, I diagnosed this case as severe lichen sclerotrophic. The protocol was local anesthetic cream to the entire vulva for 40 minutes before the treatment, 2 sessions every 4 weeks of local fractional bipolar radiofrequency energy therapy with gold microneedles. After each session, I administer Exosome IC plus RBL to entire damaged vulvar area, to entire it in labia minora, labia majora, clitoral hot, vestibular space, perineal space too. After starting treatment session, it was recommended to avoid chemical products such as sauce or gel in the vulvar area. After the first session, she began to work vulvovaginal epithelium with vaginal dilators and has managed to sexual intercourse with her partner. The patient currently reports improving her itching and stinging symptoms, and the most important for me was no adverse effects or complications were recorded at the end of the treatment in this clinical case. This is the pics of the picture before the treatment. Looks here in the vulvar area, the white plaques. Look here, the abrasion here in the near to urethral space. Look the signs here in the vestibular, the sign of the vestibular craurosis. This is the picture after the treatment. Look to improve all the lesion in the vulvar area. And this is the same picture before and after treatment. The conclusion in this clinical case was the inflammatory dermatosis of the vulva constitutes a frequent reason for consultation in our medical practice. And it's very important to the degree of injury and correct diagnosis before the therapies. The exosome AC plus IBR applied after local analgesics in the tissue seems to be a good regenerative therapy in this pathology. Clinical follow-up of this patient should be carried out in the long term in order to achieve remission of the lesion, control the disease, and avoid future complications. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Dr. Suramis, for such insightful sort of sharing. So we'll continue on with Dr. Ajang Yasdani from Canada to share with us the decreasing laser recovery using exosomes, please.
This is not, oh, I see. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I'd like to thank ExcoBio, Benev, as well as our Canadian partners, Excite Tech, for inviting me to come speak today. My name's Arjang Yazdani. I'm a plastic surgeon from Canada. Sorry. Oh, okay. Is this better? Okay. My name's Arjang Yazdani. I'm a plastic surgeon from Canada. I'm here today talking about the use of exosomes in ablative laser recovery and how to improve our laser outcomes. We've been using exosomes in our laser recovery, particularly with our ablative patients, to really improve the outcomes, to quicken healing, and also to decrease the risk and the incidence of redness post-ablation. I've been doing lasers for about 20 years, and I've used CO2 as well as erbium. And I can say that while we've gotten better at diminishing the risk of redness, swelling, pigmentation, post-ablative resurfacing, it's still a significant problem, and it affects how our patients get their outcomes, the quality of their outcomes. The patients who do have this problem end up having multiple treatments later and are dissatisfied with their results. So we've, even despite our best protocols, this is still an ongoing problem for our deep resurfacing patients to some degree. We've incorporated the use of exosomes in these patients and have been quite satisfied with how it's improved the risk of these problems. This is an example of a patient who's got this problem. So she's had a deep erbium resurfacing of her perioral area. You can see in the first picture, she's back at day 1 for her debridement and her nursing care. At 1 week, she's cleaned up, she's almost healed. It really does look good for such a deep resurfacing. But at the 3-month mark, she comes back and she's got redness, she's got some pigmentation. This is a time when that result should be excellent. The texture and the wrinkles are better, but you really can't appreciate it because of that redness. So it really diminishes the result, makes the patient dissatisfied. It makes us have to continue care and add other treatments to try to improve this. So we've incorporated exosome treatment in our post-laser recovery. And as you all know, it's a simple thing to do. Right in the procedure room, we'll put on the exosomes and give the patient half the bottle to go home to apply later that evening. And we find that that has improved. There's a video here, but just for the sake of time, I'm just gonna skip past it. We've had such good outcomes. We've actually used our outcomes as a basis for a clinical trial that we're running. This is a randomized, controlled, double-blinded, placebo-controlled trial that's ethic approved. And we've actually begun this study. It's powered for 54 patients with 3 arms, a full face arm, a split face, as well as a control. I'm not going to be talking about the results. We're not complete with this study, and hopefully next year at this symposium, I can present the results of this study to you. But today I'm just going to go through some of our patients that have had exosome treatment post-deep ablative resurfacing and really show you how it's improved their outcomes. So this is our first lady. This is a lady who's had a full field erbium resurfacing, a deep resurfacing at 800 microns. She's back. The first picture is her 1-day return back to clinic for her debridement, her nursing care. The second is her 1-week visit. She's healed, but she's still a little bit red. At the 2-week mark, that redness is gone, and she looks great at the 6-week mark. So we try to really limit that healing to the 1 to 2 week mark for our deep resurfacings. We think that's the limit of healing that the patient can tolerate. And having these exosomes on these patients ensures that they really do have that healing complete within that 2-week mark. This is a lady who had profractional laser resurfacing. Again, a fairly aggressive deep resurfacing at 22% with 2 passes. Her 1-day visit is back. At 1 week, she's still red. At 2 weeks, that redness is completely gone, and she looks great at 6 weeks. And again, this is a patient who's got the profractional treatment, on the procedural table, she gets her exosomes and gets half the bottle to go home with afterwards. This patient, some of you may recognize, is a beautiful young lady who came to see us 6 weeks before her wedding and told us she wanted her eyelids resurfaced. And normally I'd say no, but she managed to twist my arm into this. So we really felt the pressure. We wanted to do a deep resurfacing, but we had this pressure of a wedding coming up. And so we applied the exosomes, gave her the exosomes to go home with. And really, this is her 7-day journey. It's a deep profrac resurfacing of her upper and lower eyelids, 2 passes at 22%. And at 7-8 days, you can see that she's completely healed, a little minor redness, but really for the aggressive nature of that ablation, it's not bad at all. This is a young guy who had a full field resurfacing of his lower eyelids, 2 passes, deep resurfacing, exosomes were placed immediately afterwards, and this is his 1-week result. And this is really a great result. This is probably one of our best, and something I can say that we wouldn't have seen prior to having exosome treatment on these ablative patients. This patient had profrac treatment, again, an aggressive profrac treatment, full face, 2 passes at 22%, followed with full field perioral resurfacing at 400 microns. Exosomes were placed immediately afterwards, and she was given her vial to take home. 1 week, you can see that she's still a little bit red. It's not too bad given how aggressive she was. At the 2-week mark, she's healed, and at 6 weeks, she really looks great. And finally, this patient had problems with redness. We knew she was at risk of having further redness post-ablation. She was a full face profrac, aggressive at 22%, 2 passes, followed with perioral full field at 400 microns. Exosome treatment immediately afterwards, as well as going home, and this is her result at 2 weeks. So no redness, still a little bit swollen. She's got some maturation to do with that resurfacing, but she really does look great. So in conclusion, we've really incorporated the use of exosomes in all our ablative resurfacing. We also, in fact, have been so satisfied that we use it for our aggressive non-ablative resurfacing as well. We find the exosomes can help laser recovery, decreasing redness, and in some cases also decreasing that potential hyperpigmentation. It gives the patient better results. It gives us more confidence to give aggressive settings, and that's the big thing. If we know that we can shave off a couple days of their healing time, as well as decrease that risk of redness, it lets us be more aggressive with our settings, and we get better results, and patients are happier. And finally, I think there is a role to expand the use to other energy devices outside of the ablative lasers, and we're starting to do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ajang. And because of time, we'll move on to the next speaker, which is Dr. Jennifer Levine from the United States, which she will talk about using exosome for skin. Please.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to be talking about something a little different, which is using exosomes in treating vascular occlusion. I know it's a little late, but nothing gets the blood pumping like a vascular occlusion. I am a facial plastic surgeon in New York, on the Upper East Side, and I'm so excited to be here in Korea. And thank you to Exoco Bio and Benev and Ethan Bin for having me here. Here are my disclosures. We'll skip this. So here is my lovely patient. She actually lives in Denver, Colorado, and she has an apartment in New York. And she calls me up on a Monday. She calls my office up and she said, you know, I had some filler injected when I was in Denver about 5 days ago, and could you help me out? I have an infection. And I said to my office staff was like, you want to call in an antibiotic for this patient? I said, no, I want to see this patient. So she didn't want to come in. We then convinced her to send a picture, in which case I had her come in immediately. So she had calcium hydroxyapatite injected into her nasolabial fold approximately 5 days prior to this photograph. And if you weren't sure what the vascular distribution of the angular artery is, you can see it quite clearly here. So she was, and what did I do is I did whatever I could. So I treated her with Hylenex, normal saline. I did see some reperfusion. I treated her with antibiotics. I gave her a Medrol dose pack. I gave her Cialis. And I decided that because there were early signs of impending necrosis or even some necrotic tissue, that I was going to treat her with exosomes. And because we did not have the exobomb yet, I took the rest of the exosomes and I mixed it with Aquaphor, and I instructed her to apply that to the area twice a day. And this is her 48 hours after treatment. She lived in University Place, which is really close to my office on the Upper East Side, and I really couldn't convince her to come in because she said, I'm doing great, you don't need to see me, I'm fine. And here she is a few months later when I did see her again. So that's my case.
Fantastic. It was interesting. All right, thank you very much. So next we'll open the Q&A later. So next speaker will be Dr. Carlos Garcia Miras from Mexico, and we'll talk about hair.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Buenas noches a todos in Mexican Spanish. I'm excited to be here tonight, sharing my experience with exosomes developed by Exocobio BNF with the treatment for androgenetic alopecia. Let's dive into the case of a 37-year-old patient with androgenetic alopecia grade 5 of Hamilton-Norwood. He had been struggling with hair thinning in the interparietal region for 5 years, affecting his appearance and well-being. Seeking help, he came to our clinic, and he doesn't have previous treatments and a family history of alopecia. In the physical examination, revealed frontoparietal region, miniaturized in both apex, vertex, and interparietal region, and addition size of seborrhea. We notice with the dermatoscope a follicular capacity of 1 to 3 hairs per follicle, but thankfully no other scalp issues. Now, let's get into the treatment process. First, we clean the patient's scalp with sodium hypochlorite, and next, we diluted the exosome solution and extracted 2.5 milliliters while adjusting microneedling device to a depth of 25 millimeters and 90 revolutions per second. Using a syringe and needle, we apply the exosomes in a linear fashion dripping along the designated areas. This was followed by microneedling up to a depth of 1 millimeter. The application was done in quadrants, targeting the apex, trichon, and interparietal region and vertex. We perform micropuncture in a circular motion until slight bleeding occurs, indicating penetration into the dermal papilla cells. The patient was then advised to let the exosomes work their magic overnight. Okay. This is a treatment combination therapy treatment in 6 steps. First step, I gave him a formula of minoxidil hair lotion every night. Application of keratin of the hydrolyzed hair lotion every morning. Guarana shampoo and ricino extract 3 times per week. Sempiternite shampoo 2 times per week. supplements of vitamins for hair, like vitamin B5, B6, B8, B9, biotin, magnesium, daily for 4 months, and 4 total sessions of Exosomes over the course of 3 months. In the first follow-up, we noticed significantly reduced hair loss, and the patient mentioned seeing baby hairs beginning to grow after week 3 in the frontoparietal area. And in the month 2, we noticed hair growth and no hair loss. And remarkably, after month 3, we saw continued regrowth of hair, 90% reduction of hair loss, and 80% of hair recovery. The patient reported satisfaction with the results with no complications such as irritation, itching, erythema, or hair loss. You can see the improvement in the hairline as the hair appears darker and thicker. His scalp feels like his scalp feels normal and not oily. Cue the comparative photographs. We can see significant hair recovery, especially in the frontoparietal area, where the hair appears thicker and darker. Additionally, there is better hair quality and more density. It seems like we have almost achieved full hair recovery. In this comparative, we can see the improvement in current area. And now, let's shift our focus to the lateral and frontal views. Look at the progression improvement in the hairline, and we're successfully recovering in the treated areas. This is beautiful, right? Well, in conclusion, after just 3 months of treatment for androgenetic alopecia, our patient experienced significant progress and improvement. This confirms the safety and effectiveness of the Exosomes protocol developed by ExoCoVio-VNF. It's a winning combination therapy that ensures patient adherence and compliance, resulting in having 20 and 80% improvement in hair recovery and an 80% reduction in hair loss. We're making significant strides in reclaiming healthy hair. Most importantly, our patient is happy with the results. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carlos. That's a great result. So last but not least, let me invite Dr. Daniela Mendoza from Mexico as well to talk about scalp treatments with Exosomes. Thank you.
I want to ask everyone to please stay, and this is the last lecture, and then we're going to have the awards, so please don't leave.
I would really like to say a very, very sincere hamsamida to everyone who is here, because I know it's late, and I hope everyone can bear with me for the last minutes. Well, I want to present a case of a 79-year-old woman who presented to the clinic because she had fell, and her skin got caught on the rails of an electric escalator. She's old, so she couldn't get up, and her hair kept getting onto the rails, and this is what happened. You can observe how the muscle was exposed and the bone also. 40 years before this patient, unfortunately, she has bad karma. She had the same accident 40 years before. She had a scalpel on her on the scalp area, and she had gotten on that time a total depth skin graft. You can observe how the skin is hyperpigmented, it is atrophic, and it is sclerotic. It is a very bad condition of the skin. So when I saw her, I cleaned the wound and we started antibiotic treatment. And as I said, she doesn't have a very good luck. So she had a gastritis. We had to change the antibiotic. And when I saw her again on day 5, I decided to start Exosomes because I was preparing her for a total skin graft again. Well, this is the treatment plan. We started doing wound treatments and I cleaned with hypochlorite solution and I started applying topically on the skin the exosome. It depended on how much we use. We use from 0.5 to 1 milliliter. And then I put some TV and so she relaxed and she didn't fall again on the clinic. And after about 10 minutes, we covered with either a duoderm or an algicide patch. It depended on how I saw the skin. And the patient was instructed to cover her skin and come back in 72 hours. During the first 26 days, we saw very good results. So about the second time she went to the clinic, we decided not to perform surgery and we would continue just with the wound treatment. She was very desperate to go back home, and so we let her go back home, but she was not able. I didn't think about giving her the treatment so she could put it by herself in her hometown. So she went without the exosomes. This is what happened when she stopped using the exosomes, another 24 days for the skin to heal completely. This is review of what happened in the first 24 days with exosomes, and then for the next 26 days, a little slower for another 26 days until the skin completely healed. You can observe here how the skin quality is better. It's less hypopigmented and hyperpigmented, and the quality is way better, as a lot of the lecturers today have noted. So wound healing is a very important part of the dermatologic practice. We have a lot of ways to clean wounds and to heal them, but sometimes it's not very easy on all the patients. Conventional treatments can be very expensive, or sometimes the flaps are not, or the patients are not good candidates either for flaps or for total skin grafts. I think, or we thought our patient was not the best candidate since she has the very bad skin before. So the patient selection is very important, and it's very good to have other types of treatment which are not that costly, which are easy to perform and are not hurtful or harmful for the patients. Our patient had a complete wound closure in the total of 50 days with the exosome regenerative complex. Especially in this patient, we were very happy to be able to use this because she had comorbidities and bad skin quality. We were happy we didn't need to do surgery because she had to take the escalator again when she went home. This was a painful treatment, and she was very, very happy and very content with the treatment. This is a summary of what happened, and I just want to show here how the first 24 days were they were going well, and when I stopped using the exosomes, it did heal, but it was almost the same time without the exosomes. So we know in the literature, we have been using in vitro and in vivo exosomes to cure wounds. And I just want to say that this wound got better because of all the ways the exosomes work. First of all, they suppress inflammation, and then we can see how, again, there's vascular proliferation, and then that we get good healing in early and late stages of the wound healing. These are some of the mechanisms that we have already seen in some of the lectures, so I will not talk about this again. So there was an accelerated closure with the exosome regenerative complex that we did not see when we stopped using it. I really want to stress this because it is not a controlled case, but it is very evident how it was going very well and very fast, and then it stopped when we did not use it. I will take into consideration what you have done that you can give the patient to take home. This case exemplifies how there are other ways to get a good result in patients, not just skin grafts. Thank you very much for your attention. And
thank you so much, Dr. Dan. It's such insightful talk and also such a beautiful case. So after hearing 5 amazing cases here, we're moving on towards the panel discussions. Because of time, I think there's some of us with thousands of questions, and there are those who, after a long day, can't wait to go partying. So we only have 10 minutes for this Q&A session, and we will open to 2 lucky person. You have to be fastest to be in front of the mic to get that question out. Anybody? Everybody's so eager to party, I guess. So you just get in front of mic, but we only limit to 2 lucky person to get that question out. Okay, yes.
In your experience, how many sessions, how can we predict
sorry,
the
can
number?
You introduce yourself, your name, and then...
My name is Juliana, I'm a dermatologist from Brazil. And thank you for your classes, were amazing. And I would like to know how can we predict the number of the sections for Asian skin, for example?
Are you directing to any person or you anybody? Anybody?
We ask the public to please keep quiet.
Okay.
Well, actually, from my very short experience with exosomes, and remember we are working using rose stem cells exosomes, we found that the more you apply, the better and faster result you get. So we recommended twice or even 3 times a day application.
But after treatment, like after microneedling?
After microneedling, I usually apply 3 layers, one after another. And then if there is something left in the vial, I'll give it to the patient. But usually it's enough for just next day. And usually they purchase another vial to use for next days, or they would come to the office. But we tried, actually we did some trials with applying just 1 layer and with a smaller frequency, then the effect was not as spectacular as with more layers and higher frequency.
I think from the study in the journal Cosmetic Dermatology this year, they show that the microneedling in combination with the adipocyte-derived stem cell exosome for 3 sessions with 3 weeks apart, with the last follow-up at 6 weeks show the significance. So we can refer to that at least 3 sessions.
Thank you. Yes. Hi, this is Dr. Sayrafi from Saudi Arabia. My question is especially for Dr. Lim regarding, do you think exosome can cause cancer? Does exosome stimulate cancer cells?
Me or you?
Yeah. You.
So the question is, can cancer cells exosome cause cancer?
Yeah.
That's a very good question. We don't know. So there are lots of studies that suggest it, but if you look at the methodology, it's not so robust. So I think at this moment, the jury is still out whether tumor exosomes can cause tumor.
So it's possible.
Yes.
I guess nobody really works on that, right?
Jan has something to say.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So the question is really whether an exosome can change a cell to become a cancer cell.
Yes.
There's no such evidence, as far as I know. Now, there is evidence to suggest that cancer exosomes, melanoma exosomes, potentially, and that data is not so robust either, potentially can help the metastasis of... you don't believe that? No, I said... No, I agree with her, actually, but there's some paper out there that suggests that.
That study is flawed. So I'm sorry, I don't agree with that.
But I said yes, I agree with you, but there's data published that suggests that. I didn't say it does. big difference. So I would argue no.
Okay, thank you for the question. All right, so because of time, maybe I will get one more. Last one, okay, one last one. You're gonna fight for it, three of you.
She said it's a cancer-related question.
The same one? Yeah, it's related. So it's related to the previous question. So if the patient has already previous history of cancer, are we allowed to treat it with exosome? They already had a previous history of cancer. Is there any protocol? Should we have to ask every patient before to start to treat it with exosome if they have a history of cancer or malignancy?
Anyone want to take that?
I'm not sure if this is, I think that would have to go through clinical trials, and then they will have to look at contraindications for the use of exosomes. So I don't.
Yeah, I was thinking. Okay.
No, I don't agree with you. I see no reason if the patient. I mean, of course, you should know your patient's history.
Sure.
You have to, but putting topical exosomes on the face has no relevance to breast cancer. None.
But we saw today also one case that was treated in the breast area after breast cancer with a topical exosome. Is it allowed? Because she has already the cancer in the breast.
So what is allowed or not in your jurisdiction, I have no idea.
I mean,
I have no idea. But I mean, the
contraindication?
reason is to treat this radiation injury, right? And
Yeah.
that makes sense.
It's radiation or scar after surgery, mastectomy, because as I remember yesterday, it was only also one case. It was treated with exosome after post-radiation, post-surgery, post-mastectomy. So is it allowed to do it?
So I'll explain this a bit further. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Right. So to really transform a cell to become cancer, you need DNA. You need the DNA to transfer it into the cell and go into the nucleus and make the nucleus a cancer nucleus. I don't think there's any evidence that this really happens with exosomes. And with these type of exosomes, the amount of DNA is really extremely low. So the material is processed in such a way that the DNA is almost zero, at levels lower than what FDA would allow. So.
Thank you. So yeah, that's this kind of questions is always to do or not to do. I think in the end of the day, as physicians, you have to take to consider risk and benefit. For instance, if it's clearance, you know that the risk is so low, probably you will, but it's it's in the end your decision. So basically, I think because of time.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to ask my question. They postponed me twice. I'm not sitting.
Okay. Okay. All right. So why don't this?
I want everyone to hear my question.
Right. Because you can always ask the question at the party, but I'll let you get the question. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Saif. I'm the distributor in the United Arab Emirates. As in the industry, every 5 minutes a new company comes with a new exosome. So every company with a new exosome claims that they have the best source. Bone marrow is better than fat cells. Umbilical cord is better than bone marrow. Human placenta is better than X and Y. We want to have a final answer. When it comes to multiple sources, which one is the best as far as we are concerned, skin and hair?
So you want to ask the mother of exosomes?
Of course. My friend.
Okay.
I don't think there is a good answer because it depends on the manufacturer. So a good manufacturer, even using supposedly poor quality MSC like bone marrow and then somebody has something more superior. If this guy is good in the manufacturing, he can produce better exosomes than the next person. But the question is, what is better? Actually, we don't know the answer. Surprisingly, we don't know the answer. So does 10 billion cells, 10 billion exosomes better than 1 million exosomes? Maybe, maybe not. Because if you look at the numbers, it's like currency. I just told somebody, is $1 better than one, I don't know what, Zimbabwe, $1. Both are $1, so which is better? So the particular numbers are just that. Unfortunately, we don't have an exchange rate. We don't know what is the exchange rate. So I think you will have to stick to people with good reputation, good track record. Sorry.
All right, I hope that answers your question. So we're gonna end this Q&A sessions and we're gonna move on. Any more questions you can ask during the party? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, panelists. Looking forward.
Thank you everyone for staying so late. We're gonna go with the Exocobayo Award, so please deal with us 10 more minutes. Awards. This is done alphabetically by the name of the country. So we're gonna start first with LG Chemical from South Korea. So please a big round of applause. Okay.